The sun was setting over the dusty highways of Texas when Jack Ryder Lawson and his crew pulled their Harleys into a small roadside diner. The neon sign flickered. Maggie's Diner, open 24 hours. It was the kind of place truckers and bikers stopped at after long rides, a spot that smelled of coffee, bacon, and a little loneliness. Jack, the leader of the Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club, was known around town as a man of few words, but deep loyalty. He wasn't the kind of biker who picked fights for fun. He believed in code, respect, loyalty, and justice. After hours on the road, he just wanted coffee and quiet. Inside, the diner was almost empty. A few locals sat in the corner booth, murmuring softly over their meals. Behind the counter stood a young waitress, maybe in her mid-20s, with tired blue eyes and a polite, forced smile. Her name tag read Emily. "Coffee black," Jack said as he took a seat at the counter. She nodded and poured the steaming liquid into his mug, her hands slightly trembling. Jack noticed right away. Years of living rough had given him an eye for details most people missed. A flicker of fear, a nervous glance, the faint stiffness in her movements. When she leaned over to place his cup down, the sleeve of her uniform shifted, revealing a dark bruise on her wrist. She noticed his eyes glance at it and quickly pulled her sleeve down. "Just an accident," she said, forcing a small laugh. But her voice cracked. Jack didn't believe her. He'd seen too many people try to hide pain behind nervous smiles. He sipped his coffee, keeping his tone casual. "Tough job, huh?" "Yeah, long hours," Emily replied, her eyes darting toward the door for a split second, as if expecting someone to walk in. That look said everything. Jack didn't press further. He knew that kind of fear, the kind that makes people hide. But inside, something stirred. He had promised himself years ago that if he ever saw someone being mistreated, he'd step in, no matter what. As he sat there, the local sheriff's deputy entered, grabbed a donut and gave Emily a dismissive nod. Even he seemed to know something, but didn't care enough to act. That angered Jack quietly. When Emily brought him the check, he noticed more bruises near her neck. "You sure you're okay?" he asked softly. She froze for a moment, then whispered, "Please don't get involved." That was the moment Jack decided. He already was involved. He left a $100 bill on the counter for a $6 coffee and walked out, his jaw tight, heart heavy. As he mounted his Harley, he looked back through the diner window. Emily was wiping the counter, pretending to be fine, but her eyes told a different story, one of fear and silence. Jack started his engine, the roar echoing through the empty road. He wasn't riding away. He was planning his return. Because tomorrow, someone was going to answer for those bruises. The next evening, the Texas sky was heavy with clouds, and the air smelled of rain and gasoline. Jack Ryder Lawson wasn't alone this time. He rolled into Maggie's Diner with 5 of his Iron Wolves brothers, men he trusted with his life. Their engines thundered in the quiet night, turning every head in town. Inside the diner, Emily was working the night shift again. She froze for a moment when she saw Jack walk in, not out of fear, but out of surprise. His presence gave her a strange sense of safety she hadn't felt in months. The other bikers took seats at separate tables, keeping their voices low, their eyes alert. Jack ordered the same thing as before, coffee black. When Emily brought it over, he looked up at her and asked softly, "Is he coming tonight?" Her lips trembled. "He always does," she whispered. It wasn't long before the diner's glass door slammed open. A man in a dirty jacket and red cap stomped in, tall, angry, and already half drunk. He smelled like cheap whiskey and trouble. His eyes locked on Emily immediately. "Where the hell have you been, Em?" He barked loud enough to make everyone turn. Emily froze, clutching a coffee pot. "I'm working, Tom. Please don't." Before she could finish, he grabbed her wrist, the same wrist with bruises Jack had seen. The room went silent. The only sound was the hum of the old ceiling fan and the slow creak of leather as Jack stood up. "Let her go," Jack said, his voice calm but cold enough to cut glass. Tom turned, sneering. "Who the hell are you? Another biker punk trying to play hero?" Jack didn't answer. He just took one step closer, then another, until he stood face to face with the man. Behind him, the iron wolves rose to their feet. The sound of chairs scraping the floor echoed like thunder. Tom's grip loosened as he looked around. 6 bikers, all staring at him with eyes that meant business. "This ain't your problem," he muttered. Jack's voice deepened. "It is now." He gently pulled Emily behind him. "Go to the back," he said, not taking his eyes off Tom. Tom tried to swing, a mistake he'd regret instantly. Jack caught his arm midair and twisted it behind his back, forcing him to his knees. "You ever touch her again?" Jack growled, "and you'll wish the cops got to you first." At that moment, headlights flashed outside. A sheriff's car. Jack had called earlier, knowing trouble would come. The deputy walked in, surprised to see Tom pinned to the floor. "Thought you might want to handle this one properly," Jack said, stepping back. As Tom was cuffed and dragged out, Emily stood near the counter, tears in her eyes, not from fear this time, but from relief. Jack placed his leather jacket around her shoulders. "You're safe now," he said softly. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky as the iron wolves mounted their bikes. Justice had arrived, not in a badge, but in black leather and roaring engines. The morning after the incident, the little Texas town of Ridgefield buzzed with talk. Everyone had heard about what happened at Maggie's diner, how the Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club had stepped in when no one else dared. Some people were shocked, others grateful, but one thing was certain: the town would never look at bikers the same way again. Emily woke up in a small, cozy apartment provided by one of the town's kind residents, a friend of Jack's. For the first time in months, she slept without fear of heavy footsteps at her door or angry shouts in the night. The bruises still marked her skin, but her spirit finally felt free. That morning, Jack knocked softly on her door. He wasn't wearing his usual dark sunglasses or biker scowl. Instead, he carried a small bag of groceries and a warm smile. "Thought you could use breakfast," he said. Emily's eyes welled up. "You didn't have to." "Yeah, I did," Jack interrupted gently. "No one should go through what you did." They sat together, eating quietly. Emily told him about her past, how Tom had been charming at first, how the control and abuse had crept in slowly until she was too scared to leave. Jack listened without interrupting, his fists clenched, not in anger at her, but at the system that had failed her. Later that day, the rest of the Iron Wolves showed up at the diner. They weren't there to scare anyone. They came to help. One fixed the flickering neon sign, another repaired the broken window Tom had smashed weeks earlier. They even repainted the walls, turning the old tired diner into a brighter, safer place. Locals who once crossed the street to avoid the bikers began stopping by to thank them. Sheriff Dalton, who had long been skeptical of the club, even dropped in. "Guess I misjudged you boys," he admitted with a nod. Jack simply replied, "We're not the monsters people think we are. We just don't stand by when someone's getting hurt." Within weeks, Emily returned to work. Her smile was genuine this time, no longer the mask she once wore. The regular customers noticed too. The laughter that had been missing from the diner finally returned. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky orange, Jack came in for his usual coffee. Emily poured him a fresh cup and leaned on the counter. "You know," she said softly, "you changed everything." Jack chuckled. "Ah, you did that yourself. We just gave you a push in the right direction." Outside, the sound of engines echoed faintly in the distance, his brothers riding off to another town, another unknown story waiting to unfold. As Jack stood to leave, Emily stopped him. "Thank you for not walking away." He tipped his head, a faint smile on his face. "That's not how family works, darling." And with that, he stepped outside into the fading light, his motorcycle rumbling to life. The Iron Wolves roared down the road, leaving behind a town forever changed, and a young woman who had finally found her strength again.